Thank you very much. Well, Larry did love his Santa suit, and when Rye Guy got too big for the elf costume, I know these past couple of Christmases that I was the elf, Santa's little helper, and I would go around and we'd go to the children's home, like he said, and before Papa had them sit on his lap, he'd tell them a story, or he'd tell them a joke, and I don't know if they got the joke, but I'll share it with you. He'd tell the kids, on Christmas Eve, Santa asked Mrs. Claus if it was going to snow. And she said, "No, but it may rain, dear." Our next speaker is Emmett Keenan, and he is a longtime friend of Larry's, and he is the current Cathedral High School Activities Director. Some of his best memories of Larry include his hats, laugh, and compassion for others. Here he is to share some memories.
Thanks, Eli. It's a good thing you crossed off the other stuff on the introduction. We'll keep you out of detention. I appreciate Kelly asking me to talk today. I'm honored and extremely humbled. I did not know, though, that one of the greatest mentors in my life, that my opinion of him would be shattered today. When I was a freshman at St. John's in 1977, Father Otto Weber gave me my first work-study assignment. And he said, "I'm going to send you to work for the only swimming and diving coach that St. John's has ever had, and that's Pat Haws." Little did I realize the job qualification was the pulse and the ability to write a letter. I thought you were this legend, and then what are you going to do to me? I don't get it. I first met Larry in 1989. Larry and I actually were on a pontoon boat together shortly after we met to raise money for what has now become one of, I think, 11 restorations of Lake George. I think that's just an annual occurrence that we do that. But through my boss at the time, Andy Hilger, Larry and I were on a pontoon boat on Lake George. And Andy suggested that maybe we should do something where Larry and I would stay on the pontoon boat until we raised enough money. And Larry looked at him and he said, "Andy, you'd have a better chance of saying, if you raise enough money, we'll make them stay out there forever." Just the way he was. Couple of stories, not so well, they're not so lighthearted, they're not funny, but in the way Larry has touched my life personally. The first one is I have 2 adult sons with developmental disabilities. When they were going from childhood to adulthood, my wife and I decided that we wanted to establish a foster home where we would hire the staff, our boys would live there, along with some other young men with disabilities. Well, we kind of caught the folks at Stearns County Human Services and the state of Minnesota by surprise because they'd never seen that model. And they said, "No, you got to send them off to live somewhere else." I said, "No, we don't want to do that. We want to work this out." Larry didn't do anything for us other than talk to the right people, to find out the right people to talk to, so that we could then talk to the right people to figure out a way to do it. And he did that because he knew it was important to us, but more importantly, he knew it was important to our boys. And every day now, when I go over every day, when I go see my boys, I can't help but think of Larry and think of how different they would be right now if Larry hadn't taken the time to do that. I also thought about when Pat was talking about geometry class. I know this story is true. Lyle Mathiasen was here. I think he may have left. But Lyle was in Larry's geometry class as a sophomore at Cathedral High School. Lyle later became Larry's boss, just to kind of show you how things come full circle at times. And Lyle had just finished a great football season as a sophomore. And if you don't know, Lyle went on to be an All-American football player at St. John's. But Lyle wasn't going to come out for wrestling. Now, first of all, one of the first times I met Larry, I said wrestling. And he looked at me and he said, "It's wrestling. If you say the W, you don't make it to the 3rd period." Anyway, Lyle wasn't going to come out for wrestling. And Larry had gotten word of this. So out in the hallway, I presume maybe there might have been some hands on some lapels too, but this was the 60s, you could get away with stuff like that. There's probably things Larry did in the 60s that people go to jail for now, but I'm sure statute of limitations will run out. He said to Lyle, "Mathiasen, I hear you're not coming out for wrestling." Lyle said, "Yeah, you know, coach, long football season, track's coming up. I'm thinking I'm not going to wrestle this year." I'm sure Lyle said wrestle, so don't put that one on me. "Mathiasen, you want to pass geometry?" Lyle looked and said, "Yeah, that'd be a good idea. Be at practice on Monday." Lyle only ended up being a 3-time state champion heavyweight wrestler. So that's how Larry got to this. One memory of Larry since his illness that I will take with me is I had the pleasure down at the state cross-country meet in November to sit on the stage with him for the award ceremonies when both the Cathedral boys and Cathedral girls cross-country teams won state championships. I think the reason I got that is because basically at a state meet, an athletic director is useless at that point in time. You got the kids there, they don't need you for anything. And so I think along with Ryan's help, we got Larry up on the stage and got him situated, and he really wasn't going to move from there. And so I had the opportunity to sit with him through those 2 award ceremonies that I know were very, very important to him. And it's the one thing post-illness that I always remember about Larry. But the one thing that I'll take with me longer than that, because there's a reminder in my home every day, those of you who know my wife know she's a Wizard of Oz collector. And I mean, we have a 10 by 10 room in our house, top to bottom, stuff hanging from the ceilings. It started to migrate out into the hallway, and I said, no, that's enough. We're not going to do that anymore. But maybe 17, 18 years ago, I know I was still at WJON, we had gone to Hollywood Video, and my wife and I were returning a video, and we saw a Wizard of Oz tie. Well, I'm not sure what we had been doing, but neither one of us had our wallet. We didn't have any way to buy that tie. And so we didn't. And I said, well, I'll go back and get one for you later. Well, I went back about a week later, and of course they were all gone. Which means I can't go home until I find a Wizard of Oz tie. Actually, she let me come home. A couple weeks later, Larry comes into WJON for an interview. And he's got on a Ralph Marlin Wizard of Oz tie. Seriously. With probably a red striped shirt, suspenders, and a hat, but that's all not important. We do the interview, and I comment on Larry's tie, and I tell him about Barb being a collector and that we missed out on the tie. He reached up, he untied the tie, and he handed it to me. That was Larry. It's in a display case in our house, and every time I look at it, it reminds me of how Larry lived to give to other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmett.